Kakadosh Bokatov, we are going to be doing this morning Daf Pebet, which is Daf 82. Okay, and we're starting on Pe Aleph Amud Bet 81b, the last lines, because we just did the Gemara, where the Gemara said that what was the reasoning why, if the Korban Pesach became Tameh, where there was the entire thing, the majority of it, right? Why do you burn it in front of the Mikdash? In order that everyone should see it, in order to embarrass them, that because obviously there was some type of a negligence, so therefore they won't do it again. So now we're by the two dots over there, okay, where the second two lines down, okay? So it says over here like this, Nitzma miuto, if, right, the minority of it got burnt, or got tameh, or you have leftovers, notar. So you burn it in your own courtyard or on your roof, okay, with your own wood. So to mean we have a contradiction, right? If somebody's going to go outside of Yerushalayim, yeah, so he comes and he finds that he remembers that he's got Basar Kodesh. If he passed the place which is called Tzofim, which nowadays also, it's like Hara Tzofim, right? We have the concept in Mount Scopus in Israel, right? So if he found, I don't know if it's the exact same place, but for sure, if he passed this place outside of Yerushalayim, so what happens? It says, Sorfo bimkomo, you're going to burn it in its same place. Okay, vimlav, and if not. Yeah, Peibet Amud Aleph 82:1. It says over here, Chozer v'sorfo lifnei bira. So you have to go back and burn it before the bira. Me'atzeh marecha. So you see from here that even a korban that became pasul, right, is also going to be burnt with the wood of the maracha. So this is a stira that you just said before. You said before that it's going to be burnt with your own personal wood. Here it's saying it's going to be burnt with the wood of the maracha, the wood from the Bet HaMikdash. So answers the Gemara. Amar Rav Chama bar Ukva, says Rav Chama bar Ukva, la kashya, it's not a question. Kan b'achsanai, kan b'balabait. It all depends if he's a guest or if he's balabait. If he's a guest, he's usually not going to have his own wood, correct? Remember, not everyone lived in Jerusalem. Some people lived, or not some, the majority of people lived on the outskirts of whether it's going to be in Jerusalem, outside and everything. So, and we're not even talking about the people that live outside of Israel. We're talking about even in the people in Israel, but they just live in the cities around. Even today, right, the majority of people do not live in Jerusalem. There's much more people that live outside, whether it's in the north, whether it's in the south, whether it's in this, right? You've got Ashdod, you've got Tzfat, you've got Tveria, you've got Dimona, you've got, you know how many cities, Bnei Brak, you're right, Tel Aviv, you know how many people are living outside of Yerushalayim. So therefore, a guest usually will not have, right, wood. So therefore, since he does not have wood, so therefore we came and we told them, burn it with the wood of the Maracha. However, though, our Mishnah is talking about a balabait, that he himself is from Yerushalayim. So therefore, if he has his own wood, we're not going to start coming and telling him, burn it with the wood of the Maracha. You have your own wood, use your own wood. So if you're a guest and you don't have wood, we were lenient. And we said, you know what, burn it with the wood from the Mizbeach. However, though, if you are the balabait and you have your own wood, we didn't permit you to do such a thing. Okay? Rav Papa says another answer. Ha, both the Mishnayot are talking about Bachsanai. We're talking about guests. But one of them, you already went out to the path. And therefore, if you already went out on the path, we didn't obligate you to find wood. And therefore, we told you you're allowed to burn it with the wood of the manacha. Here we're talking about Achsanai, a guest, where he didn't go out on the path yet. So therefore, they didn't tell him to burn it with the wood of the manacha, but rather we told him, go find for yourself wood. Meaning if a person still stayed in Jerusalem afterwards, and now he realized, 1 second, but this was meat and I wasn't supposed to take it out, and so on and so forth. So what happens? Then and there, we tell him, you know what, start looking for wood. Why? You're not going anywhere, right? You still have another 2 days here, 3 days. So look for wood. You look for wood, you burn it, right? And again, we're talking about a guest. However, though, if the guest, on the second case, a guest was leaving already, so since he was already leaving, we didn't start telling him, you know what, now start looking for wood. You told him just burn it with the wood of the Mizbeach, and then that's it. Okay, so that's the second answer of Papa, that we're both talking about guests, but one is that the guest already left. So once he started leaving, we don't obligate him to start looking for wood, and the other one, he's still here, so he's got time. So therefore, we start telling him for looking for wood. Okay, fine. Next, Rav Zvid Amar, Rav Zvid comes and he says a third answer. Le'olam, really be'emet, kedamar, le'olam kedamar v'ikara. Just like we said at the beginning, that we're talking about a guest and we're talking about a balabait. Kam b'achsanai, kam balabait. And even though he didn't go on the derech, Since the guest does not have his own wood, so they made it like tzarei ayin. As we learned in the Mishnah, meaning this person that he's a guest, since he doesn't have his own wood, so he's like the tzarei ayin. The tzarei ayin where people were very stingy and they didn't want to start spending their own money on things. So they wanted to use the atzia maracha, the wood of the mizbeach, in order to burn these sacrifices. So he says, so since these people are tzaraim, they don't have their own wood. So therefore, they're like the tzarei ayin that the Mishnah says they're allowed to burn it in front of the maracha. Okay, in front of the mizbeach, with the wood of the mizbeach, they come and they burn it lifnei abira. Fine. Next, says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Okay? What happens if they come and they want to burn it in their own chatzer, but they want to use the atzeh maracha? So en shomin lahen, we do not listen to them, and therefore, right, they have to do it with their own etzim. Meaning, imagine they come to us and they say, we want wood from the maracha, we want wood from the mizbeach, and we say, what are you doing? No, I'm burning it by my roof. We don't give it to them. Right? Also, if they want to do it right here in front of the Bet HaMikdash, and they want to use their own wood, also en shomin lahem, we don't listen to them. Why? Because they have to burn it with the wood of the mizbeach. Once it's right there, they have to burn it with the wood of the mizbeach. Okay, so in both cases, we don't listen to them. Okay, so bishama me'atzeh maracha bechatzrehen en shomin lahen. I understand that when we're talking about the wood of the maracha in the chatzer, right? En shomin lahem, we're not going to listen to them. Dilma paishan minayhu, because maybe there's going to be leftover, and then it's going to be a takala, right? What does that mean? Right now, what were we talking about? You went to the Bet HaMikdash and you want to ask for wood to bring it to your house. Here, we don't listen to you. Why wouldn't we listen to you? Very, very simple. You know why we're not going to listen to you? Because if right now you have leftovers and you're doing it on your balcony or on your roof, what's going to happen? If there's leftover wood and now you're going to use it for something else other than this korban that you were burning, it's isur mi'ilah. So therefore, it's going to come a takala. There's going to be a stumbling block here. Because if there's leftover wood, you're in trouble. So that's why obviously we're not going to listen to you and give it to you. One second, but if it's in front of the Bet HaMikdash and they want to use their own wood, what's the problem? What's the problem? Let them use their own wood. So Rav Yosef says, one answer is we don't want to embarrass people that don't have their own wood. Meaning, if everybody would be able to come and bring their own wood in front of the Mizbeach, in front of the Bet HaMikdash, in order to burn that sacrifice, so if somebody comes without wood, it's like an embarrassment. It's like, what? You're cheap. You're not bringing your own wood. So therefore, nobody's allowed to bring their own wood. If you're already doing it in front of the Bet HaMikdash, nobody brings their own wood. That's the first answer. Second answer, Rav Amar, mipnei hachashad, because of the suspicion. What does that mean? Since after the burning, right, they used to they would take it back to their houses. So then people might say, 1 second, these guys, they're stealing wood from the maracha. Why? Because imagine right now, you bring wood to the lifnei abira in order to burn the sacrifice, and all of a sudden you're taking wood home. Who's going to know how much wood did you bring? How much are you taking home? Who's going to know, did you bring wood at all? Or you pretended to bring wood and now you're taking wood at home? So people are going to start suspecting that you're going to come and start stealing wood. So my benai, what's the difference between the two different cases? If a person brought kanim and fedekel, which is things which are hard, which are not fitting for the maracha, and now he's going to burn it in front of the bira, according to Rav Yosef, we don't listen to it because again, we're not going to embarrass other people. But according to Rava, we do listen to it because even if he's going to take it back home, nobody's going to start suspecting, right, that they stole it because these things are not fitting for the manacha. So therefore, everyone knows that if he brought these reeds or whatever it is, obviously it was for himself, meaning he brought it himself and that he's not stealing from anything. So that's the difference between the two different opinions of Rav Yosef and Rava, the practical difference between them. If he brought something that cannot be really brought in front of the Mizbeach, so we're not going to suspect that he's stealing, but we do suspect not to embarrass the other people that they didn't bring wood on their own. Okay? Tanan Hatam, we learned over there. Okay? This is the Mishnah Tamid. Rosh Ma'amad, the person that's in charge of the Ma'amad, Haya Ma'amid Tatmi'in al Shara Mizbach. So here we're talking about the one that was in charge, right? He used to come and he used to put the people which were Tme'im, he used to put them on the entrance of the eastern gate. Okay? So that's where everyone used to come into Harabait. My Tama, what's the reasoning? In order to embarrass them, which means how could they not be careful in order to become tameh? So because of that, right? Since they knew that the next day they had to do the sacrifice, how could it be that they weren't careful? So since they weren't careful, he would embarrass them, right? It's something incredible. It was like a lot of pressure. It was like a peer pressure. right? So imagine a Kohen had to do the service, let's say this entire week. Because remember, every single Bet Av had a 1 week service, right? And it was a 24 weeks, and then they started again. So every Kohen usually had minimum of twice a year, full week service. Okay? So imagine this Kohen was supposed to work on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbat, right? And all of a sudden, what happens is that he becomes tameh. So they come and they put him in front of everybody. So everyone comes and they see him. Why? He should have been careful. Why wasn't he careful? He didn't realize that he had to do the avodah the entire week. So Rava says, in order that people come and they say that in order not to suspect him, that he's not doing the service of the Bet HaMikdash and he's doing his own melacha. So therefore, everyone's going to see him and they know that he's tameh, right? And that's why he's not working the Bet HaMikdash, because of tumah. So again, it's almost the same thing that we mentioned before, which is basically one of them is in order to embarrass them, and another one is in order not to suspect them, right? Just like before, it was not to embarrass them or the suspect. So it's the same concept. So it says, now what's the difference between them? The difference between them are kohanim funakim, finicky kohanim, kohanim which are meticulous or picky. They're picky. So what does that mean? That everyone knows that they don't have melacha. So according to Rava, you're not going to put them in the Shara Mizrach, because since everyone knows that they don't have melacha, so for what are you going to put them in the Shara Mizrach? Leave them there, and that's it. However, though, according to Rav Yosef, that it's in order to embarrass them, you still have to put them there. Why? Because you're embarrassing them. Well, why did they become tameh? They had to be more cautious. Inami, or another answer, the kagadil shishura, that we're having a kohen that he has chavalim, which means that it's a very easy type of a job, and it doesn't have a lot of money. So according to Rava, you don't put him there because nobody is going to suspect that he's not going to do the avodat Bet HaMikdash because of his melacha. But anyway, he's got such a cheap job. A person that's making a lot of money, okay, we can understand. But a person that's hardly making anything, what's the concept, right? But according to Rav Yosef, that you do want to embarrass him, you're always going to put him there. So lavdil elef hadalot, right? What could we compare this nowadays to jury duty? Jury duty doesn't make sense because what happens is that what do? They come and they're going to cause you, or they're going to force you to come and to work. Now the question is, they're going to pay the same amount, correct? They say that they pay the same amount, or they pay according to your job.
I don't know. I said one, but I didn't receive.
Oh, you didn't receive anything. Okay, so imagine, right? Imagine you have a person that he's making $200, $300, $400 an hour, right? Some of these lawyers, and then you have a guy that he's making $12 an hour, and they're going to both be summoned to become jury duty. Do you think it's going to make sense, right, about how you're doing it? Because, for example, the guy that's making $12, for sure, he's not going to miss his third jury duty for the $12. But the guy that's making $400, he's going to try to get out of it whatever way, because listen, bitul zman, well, he's wasting his time. So that's the second answer that what the Gemara answered. That if he's got such a cheap job, we don't suspect that he's gonna, miss the avodah of the Bet HaMikdash in order to do the cheap job. But to do with embarrassment, we do have to put him there in order to embarrass him, because he should have been more cautious, not becoming tameh. Says the Mishnah Pebet Amud Aleph, 82a1. All right, not a1, 82a. Says the Mishnah, HaPesach sheyatzah shenitma yisaref miyad. When you have a Korban Pesach that they went out of Yerushalayim, or it became tameh on the 14th of Nisan, yisaref miyad, you burn it immediately, which means you don't have to wait, right, until it becomes rotten or whatever it is to burn it. You burn it immediately. Okay? Nitmiu ba'alim o shemetu. However, though, if the ba'alim, which means the owners became tamim, or the owners died, and therefore nobody is going to eat it, right? Which is a little bit of an interesting case, because that means that all the people that were supposed to eat it, they all died. Okay? Tu'bad surato. What does it mean, tu'bad surato? Which means that you have to wait until it becomes rotten, and then v'yisaref b'shishasar, and then you're going to come and you're going to burn it on the 16th of Nisan. Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka says, af zeh, right, which means the Pesach, right, which became tameh, right, yisaref miyad. Also, you're going to burn it immediately, because it doesn't have any types of ochlin. It doesn't have anybody to eat it, which means that even if it does become, that's so basically according to Shtat Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, he argues and he says that a Pesach shentiu ba'alav o shemetu, right, you're going to burn it immediately also. Not like what we just said before, that it's going to be to bar tzurato. Okay? So basically, one more time. If it's to do with the Korban Pesach that went outside of Yerushalayim or became tameh, it's burnt immediately. If it was that the owners became tamim or they died, so now you have a machloket, Tanakama Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka. According to Tanakama, to bar tzurato, and then you burn it on the 16th, okay, which means you let it get rotten and then you burn it on the 16th. And according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, you burn it immediately also. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara. Bishlama tameh, I understand by tum'ah. Ketiv, it's written by the shlamim, v'abasar asher yiga b'chol tameh, lo yachel, v'yesh yisaref. So it's written that the meat, which any person that's going to be tameh, he shouldn't eat it. Why? V'yesh yisaref. You're going to burn it in fire. Ella yotze menalan, but if it went outside, meaning like this, to do with tum'ah, it should be mefurash on the pasuk. The pasuk says, v'abasar asher yiga b'chol tameh, lo yachel, v'yesh yisaref. So you burn it immediately. What about tum'ah? Where's the written Tuma? Not Tuma, sorry, that was Tuma. By Yotze. Yotze means that it went outside of Yerushalayim. How do you know they have to burn it immediately? Menalan. How do we know that you need to burn it at all? So it says, Dichtibas, it says in the Pasuk, that Sira Chatat Asher, I'm adding in part of the Pasuk. It says by Sira Chatat, so therefore, what are we talking about over there? We're talking about that this is on the Kamata Mishkan, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. When they started the Mishkan, they inaugurated the Mishkan, so they brought a few korbanot. Now, one of them was the Seed Chatat of Rosh Chodesh, which means on Rosh Chodesh, you bring a Seed Chatat. So Moshe, he left Aaron and his children to bring the korbanot, right? And then when he came back, he realized that the Seed Chatat was burnt, but it wasn't eaten, right? So now he asked, why didn't you eat it? Ah, very good. So they said, right? The Gemara is going to explain that Moshe asked Aaron different questions to find out if it became pasul or not. From the poskim, they learns the Gemara that there was like a whole, from the psukim, there was a whole bunch of masal matan, there was like a speech between them, there was a dialogue that we don't know what happened. They were speaking back and forth, what happened, so on and so forth. So therefore, Amar lo Moshe le Aaron, says Moshe to Aaron, Madua lo achaltem et chatat? Why didn't you eat the chatat? So Shema nichnas tamal lifnim lifnim? Are you going to tell me that the blood went into the kodesh lechaper and therefore became pasul? So if so, it's good that you burned it. Amarlo, he said, lav, no. Amarlo, he said, shema mechutz mechitzata. Maybe you went outside of the azara yatzta. Amarlo, lav, b'kodesh hayta. No, it was in the kodesh. Amarlo, he told him, b'kodesh hayta. If it was inside the kodesh, which means that it didn't go outside of the azara, v'hen l'uvay tamay lakosh b'nima, and you didn't bring the blood inside as well. So madua lo chatem oto. So why didn't you buy it? Why didn't you eat it? So miklal. So we learn from here, the nafka, that if it does go out, inami ayl damalifrim, or the blood was taken inside of the echal, but srefahi, we learn that it's a srefa. Which means from the dialogue between Moshe and Aaron, Moshe was trying to investigate. Why didn't they eat the chatat? What happened? And one of the questions that Moshe Rabbeinu asked is that maybe the blood was brought into the echal. Now, the blood which is supposed to be on the outside of the echal has to stay outside. You cannot bring it inside. It's rule number one. Number two, he asked him, did it go outside? Because if it goes outside, right, so then it becomes disqualified. So you see from here, any sacrifice which is taken outside of the Azara, it becomes disqualified and you have to burn it. That's what you learn from here. Aaron answered no to both of them. So then he asked him, so why didn't you eat it? Okay? So says the Gemara, Bishlama nitzma, I understand that if it became tameh, Gali Rahmana Kadashim Kalim, and the Torah was talking about a Korban Shlamim, which is Kadashim Kalim. Kol Shekin Kodesh Kadashim. So Kol Shekin, if it's going to be Holy of Holies, which means a peace offering is a much lighter sacrifice than a Chatat or an Olah, which is the Kodesh Kadashim. Ela Yotze, but to do with going outside, Ashkechan Kodesh Kadashim. We only found it by Kodesh Kadashim. Kadashim Kalim. And how do we know that even Kadashim Kalim? Because remember that a Korban Pesach is Kadashim Kalim. HaBechor v'Maaser, right? Pesach, Kadashim Kalim, right? Right? You guys say it or not?
Of course, we do.
No, Yaakov is usually good at this. Remy, where are you? הבכור והמעשר והפסח, קדשים קלים, שחיטה במקום הזה, ומנון ומתנה אחת, ובגלל שחיטה במקום הזה, שינה וכו' 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 וכו'. You see from here that the Pesach is also considered kadashim kalim. Kapish?
You say no. You say in the morning we say that it's not kalim. The Pesach is the regular.
No, it's kadashim kalim. That's what we say in the morning. Pesach is kadashim kalim.
Kadashim kalim is a light. It's a light.
Exactly.
It's light. Yeah, in the morning we read. Yeah.
Very good. You see, I told you. He's on the ball. Very good. Yeah, very good.
I thought he went back to sleep.
No, I'm drinking my coffee, man. I gotta drink coffee in the morning.
Yeah, okay. You see, so wake up and drink coffee. No, that's what it's written. That's the way it is. Yeah. Okay, fine. So now says the pasuk, right, as follows. Says the pasuk, yeah. Says the Gemara, so now we found only by Kache Kadashim. What about Kadashim Kalim Minalan? So he says, Vetu, and furthermore, Had the Tanya, that which we learned in the Braita, Landama. What happens if they didn't sprinkle the blood until Shakiyat Chama? Yeah, that means they didn't sprinkle the blood until the sunset. So now it becomes disqualified, right? Pei bet amud bet, yeah, 82b. Nishpach dama, and the blood was spilled. Yatzad dama chutz laklaim, or the blood was taken outside of the curtains. The kaimalan was we paskin bisrefa menalan, right? So we paskin that it's going to be burnt. So menalan. How do we know this then? Right? We didn't find any mekor to do the srefa, only by tameh v'yotzeh. So says the Gemara, nafkalam, we learn it from Rabbi Shimon. Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon says, when it says v'chol chatat sheyuva miduma le'ol moel lechaper b'kodesh b'esh titzaref, that it's going to be b'kodesh, so you're going to burn it in a fire. Limed al chatat shesrefata b'kodesh. We learn on a chatat that it becomes pasul because srefata b'kodesh. You have to burn it in the holies, in the azara. Ve'en li elazu, but I only know by a chatat psula bilvad. Sharp psule koche kadashim. How do we know by everything else that becomes pasul by koche kadashim or emure kadashim kalim? Minayin, how do we know also that it becomes pasul if you take it out of the azara? Tamul lomar v'chol b'kodesh b'esh tisaref, which means that we learn from here. Rabbi Shimon says anything which is psule kadashim, you need to burn it. You need to burn it. So says the Gemara, ashkechan kache kadashim kalim minalan. That's only by kache kadashim. Kadashim kalim, how do we know? So he says like this, Gemara Gemirale, which means that it's actually going to be a halachal Moshe Misinai, that the second that something becomes disqualified, whether it's kadashim kalim or kadashe kadashim, it's all the same halacha. The chatat de Aaron, right now, by to do with the chatat of Aaron, right, where it's talking about the concept of yotze or because of aninut, and that's what Philip said before, that they were in avelut. Right? That was just a story, and that's why they brought it down. But it's the same halacha by everything, which means it's halacha Moshe Misinai. Halacha Moshe Misinai teaches us that the second that one of these sacrifices become psulim, whether it's kadashim kalim or kadashe kadashim, that's it, you burn it. Okay? Until here, clear? Yeah?
Yofi.
Okay, very good. Ultana de Rabbi Baravua, and according to the Tana of Rabbi Baravua, Damar afilu pigul taun tzibur tzura. That according to him, even pigul needs ibur tzura, right? Remember, pigul is that when you slaughtered the sacrifice, you had in mind to eat it or to do everything else, not at the proper time. And what happens is that even by that, by pigul, you're not supposed to burn it immediately. You have to wait until it becomes rotten and then burn it according to the shita. So that's what we're asking. According to Rabbi Baravua, that he says that even pigul you have to do ibur tzura menalan. So how do you know this halacha? So he says yalif avon minotar. He learns agzira shava avon from notar, right? So which means that it's written v'anefesh haochelet mina avonatisa, right? That's by pigul, and by notar it says ve'ochlav avono yisa. It's also that's going to be by notar. So therefore, just like notar, you have to wait until it's ubrat surato, which means it becomes rotten and then you burn it. So too by pigul, the same halacha. So v'ne'elaf avon mechatad Aaron. So why don't you learn avon from the chatat of Aaron? Because there it's written ve'otan natan lachem naset avon ha'edah. So just like the chatat of Aaron was burnt the same day without letting it rot, so too pigul should be burnt the same day without letting it rot. Which means, why is this Rabba Baravua learning agzera shava avon from notar? Learn avon from the chatat of Aaron, and it should be burnt immediately, not to wait to become rotten.
One question, please. Sorry, Rabbi. We're going to wait until you get the meat rot, and then we burn it. But how long do you have to wait? Maybe the meat is red about 2 days. What do you do in between?
2 days.
Okay, so what do we do in between? You just stand there and what?
No, you just put it on the side and you wait till it rots.
Okay, but
That's what you should know. The same halacha applies even to bread. Do you know that according to a lot of shitot, let's say you have leftover bread and you're not going to eat it. Yeah? Do you know that according to a lot of shitot, you're not allowed to throw it away the way that you do. You have to wait until it gets rotten. And after it gets rotten, then you double bag it and you throw it out.
With the Baal Korban, what does he do in between?
No, you put it on the side and you wait until it rots.
Okay. But if you're in Yerushalayim and you burn it in Yerushalayim and you live in Haifa, what you do in between?
No, you don't. So then that's fine. The Kohanim will burn it, or somebody else will burn it. That's okay.
Okay. That's
yeah. They anyway. Here we're talking about the Kohanim.
Yeah.
All the things of the pigul or whatever. All these things are the Kohanim are doing all this. Yeah.
And there was no flies.
And there were no flies. Exactly. There were no flies. Yeah, but still, it would still get rotten. Saying if you leave meat outside for 2 days, remember, there's no air conditioning, there's no inside of a house. You're talking about in the open air. If you leave it for 2 days outside, it's gonna rot.
But it's still gonna have a bad smell also. You might have no flies, but the bad smell, yes, that's for sure, because the meat doesn't change.
You're probably right, but I don't know. I don't remember anything about the smell. It's the flies was written. The
Yeah,
flies was written. You're right, but I don't remember anything about the smell. I don't remember. Yeah, the reach nichuach is just a pleasant statement. Very good. Okay. So Amar Lecha, so he's going to tell you now, Chatat de Aaron ki aigav nanami ibur tzura ledorot baya. He says also the Chatat of Aaron, in such a case, you also need ibur tzurot, also for generations. Vehata murat sha'haita. But there was just a special halacha, which means that according to Rabbi Baravua, he wanted to say, no, Aaron HaKohen was an exception to the rule. Even by the case of Aaron HaKohen, technically they should have waited until it gets rotten. You have to wait until it loses its form, and then you burn it. Here it was a horat shah, it was a special deen by Aaron HaKohen that they're going to come and they're going to burn it immediately. But usually you never do that. So according to him, it makes sense then why you're going to say that you need the bur tzura. So Hashadam Nina, now that you just said Kol Psule de Kodesh Bisrefa, that any Psul in Kodesh, you have to burn it, and there's no difference, Loshna, there's no difference between Kodesh Kadashim and Kodeshim Kalim, Gemara Gemira Letza, Lachala Moshe Misinai, but Kodesh Baesh Tisaref Lamali. So why do we need this pasuk that says by Kodesh you have to burn it in the fire? Why do you need it? So answers the Gemara, how Mibaile there teaches you Srefata ba Kodesh, you have to burn it in the Azara. That's what it's teaching you. Not that you have to burn it. You have to burn it for sure. You have to burn it. But it's that you burn it in the azara. That's what we have to teach you. Okay, fine. And the meat, which is going to touch anything which is tameh, you're not supposed to eat it because you have to burn it in a fire. Lamali, why do we need this case? Hahu legufe itzrich. There you need it for itself. What does that mean? Salka daita chamina. I would have thought to say kol psule de kodesh, right? Kigon lan damav nishpach damav yatzad damav nishchat balayla. Right? I would have thought to say that any time when we're talking about psule kodesh, which we're talking about psulim of kodesh, kegon, for example, lan dama v'nishpach dama v'yatzad dama. For example, we're going to talk about a case where lan dama, which means that basically the blood was staying there, or it was spilled, or it came out, v'nishchata balayla, and it was slaughtered in the nighttime. It's going to be bisrefa, telitznihu bechulin, that it's not going to be in chulin. Aval nitma, but when it becomes tameh, tevechulin nami mifsal, that by chulin also becomes pasul. I would have thought, since it already became and was done for it, maaseh of chol, uvdin dechol, uvadin dechol means it's like a weekday event. It's like something of a weekday. So ema, I would say, lo tibai srefa, you don't need to burn it. Betiskele bikvura, and it's enough just to do kivura. It's just enough to come and to bury it. Kamashmanan comes to teach you that a korban tameh, you always have to burn it. So that's what we're actually learning. Okay, fine. Now says the Mishnah, whereby the two dots. Okay. Nitmu abalim o shemetu tubar tzuratan. So this was a machloket between Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka and the Tanakama. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says you have to burn it immediately, and Tanakama says that if the owners became tmeim or right they died, then you have to let it get rot. So Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, machloket, the machloket shnitmu balim achar zrika is only if the owners became tmeim after they sprinkled the blood, they threw the blood. But then the meat was fitting for achila. Aval, however, though, right, in a case where nitmu balim lifnei zrika, they became tameh before the zrika, that the meat was never fitting at all, according to everybody, you burn it immediately. That means this halacha is only if that the meat was fitting to eat and now nobody could eat it. But if the meat was never fitting to eat, because, for example, the owners became tmeim before the sprinkling of the blood, according to everybody, you burn it immediately. Okay? So this is a shita of Rav Yosef. Meitvei, so we're going to ask a question on this. Zeh kelal, this is a general rule, right? The general rule is, kol shepsulo begufo, any time when it's going to be a psul in its body, yisaref miyad, you're going to burn it immediately. Badam uva be'alim, when we're talking about the blood or the ba'alim, tubar tzurato, you are going to get the form ruined. You have to wait until it gets ruined. And then it's going to go out to beta srefa. Ktani ba'alim dumya dedam. So we learned the ba'alim like the blood. Madam lifnei azrika, just like the blood is before the zrika, so to the ba'alim, is before the zrika. That means just like by the blood, the sprinkling of the blood, it's before, right? We're talking about that it's after the zrika, there's no more blood anymore, right? So therefore, so the same thing, the ba'alim is only before the zrika. And still we're saying that what? Tu bar tzudato, which means that after the zrika, you don't need anything. So for obviously we're only talking about before the zrika. So the question is, I thought the opposite. Even if the ba'alim, even if the owners become tamim before the zrika, before the sprinkling of the blood, that's when you still have this question. That's a machloket in our Mishnah, not like what you said. You said that the machloket was before, because if it was afterwards, according to everybody, the machloket was afterwards, but if it was before, according to everybody, you said miyad. It's not true. You're saying the exact opposite. So says the Gemara, you're right. Elaitmar hachidmar. This is what it means to say. The machloket is shenitmiu ba'alim. Only if they became tmim. But that's when? Before the zrika. Because it's not fitting for achila. But then that's a psul in the body. But balim afterwards, that the meat was fitting, according to everybody, then you do need it. Which means like this, one more time. Let's go outside. We had a Mishnah. Yeah, the Mishnah said mefurash, that what did it say? That we had a machloket. In the first case, right, where basically became tameh, according to everybody, nisraf miyad. If though it was a case where basically what happened was that the owners became tameh, right? The owners became tameh, or the owners died. Because in the first case, it was basically that it went outside or it became tameh. Here, the owners died or the owners became tameh. So in such a case, machloket, Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah says you burn it immediately. Tanakama says you burn it. You have to wait until it gets rotten. Ma'abed surah loses its form, and then you burn it. So now we came and we had the Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef comes and he says, when did the owners become tmeim? So he says the machloket between the Tanakama and the Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah is only if they became tmeim afterwards. Because if they became tmeim beforehand, since the meat was never fitting to eat, you burn it immediately. We asked a question that's not true. So now we changed it. We flipped it. You said you're right. The machloket between them is only if they became tmeim before. And then you have a machloket, you burn it immediately or wait. But if it became tameh afterwards, right, which is already fitting, according to everybody, you have to wait until it gets rotten and then you burn it. So we flipped it. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan argues on this. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, even after zrika, also it's a machloket. Rabbi Yochanan goes according to his reasoning. Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah and Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah and Rabbi Nechemia both said one thing. Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah was what we just mentioned now. Okay? That a Pesach that becomes Tmeim, right, the owners, or they die, you have to burn it immediately. That's Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah that we learned in the Mishnah. And Rabbi Nechemia, what is Rabbi Nechemia? Titania, but we learned in the Braita, Rabbi Nechemia says, Mipene aninut niserfazo, which means the Chatat of Aaron was only because of aninut, was only because of Aronen. Remember that Nadav and Avihu, they died on that same day. So because they died on that same day, he was an Onen, Aaron. So therefore it was a completely different halacha over here. Okay, ulkach ne'eman, and therefore it's written over there, vatikrena oti ka'ele. What does that mean? He is an onen, and therefore how's he going to start eating, right, the kodashim? Veha aninut kelachar zrika havya. So he says, one second, aninut of Aaron and the children are considered like a Pesach that the owners became tamim after sprinkling, because all the avodot of the chatat were done kosher, right, but just nobody was able to eat it. Vechis tziruf. Now, if you're going to come and you're going to burn that one, it was burnt immediately without the Yibar Tzura. So therefore, it comes out according to Rabbi Nechemia, even a korban which is not pasul, right, only because they don't have people eating it, also is going to be immediately burnt. So that which Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah said the same thing. We could actually say that Rabbi Yochanan ben Brukah is saying that even if the owners became tmeim after the zrika, still you burn it immediately. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is going according to his own shita. Okay, let's try to finish until the Mishnah on Pegim Lamud Aleph on 83A1. Okay, so says the Gemara.
So how come the was able to do the Pesach?
He started not the Pesach. It's not the Pesach.
Oh,
It's like a Pesach. That's what we're saying. We say it wasn't the Pesach. Because Pesach is only the 14 days later, right? Right. This is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That was an inauguration. The Korban Pesach was only the 14th of Nisan. No, so that's what he's saying here. He's saying that at the beginning, everything was done kosher. Right? At the beginning, that's what he says over here. Yeah, in between. In between. They died. Yeah, because there was a whole bunch of sacrifices. So they died in between the sacrifices. So it says over here, that's what it says over here. It says, Aninut of Aaron and Banav are considered like a Pesach that became tameh after the sprinkling of the blood, because all the avodot of the chatat were done kosher. But just now you have nobody to eat it because now they became onen. So now you have a problem. So, and we said, but it was burnt immediately. So he said, obviously it goes, Rabbi Yochanan goes according to Shita. Rabba Mosif et Rabbi Yosef Galilei. Rabba comes and he says, even according to Rabbi Yosef Galilei, right? Which means that even like Rabbi Yochanan Broka, right? You don't need to wait until it's going to become disformed, right? He says, the Tanya was learned in a Braita, right? Rabbi Yosef Galilei Omer, Kol ha'inyan kulo eno medaber ela beparim anisrafim uvisirim anisrafim. This entire inyan is only talking about parim anisrafim and sirim anisrafim, which means we're talking about the bulls and the he-goats, which are being burnt. Lisrof psulehen bet abiram. We're talking about that they're going to burn the psulim on the bet abirah. Veliten lo ta'aseh al achilatan, and then it's going to put a lo ta'aseh, all right, on the eating it. Amrulo, they went and they told them chatat shenichnas tamar lifnam lifnim minayin. How do we know that when you have a korban chatat that you're going to bring the blood inside? How do we know also that it's going to be psul? Amar lehem, he told them hen luvad dama el kodesh penima. Miklal denuna fikihu. So it comes out that it didn't go outside of the azara. Inami ail dama bisefa. Or even if it did come inside, you would burn it. So therefore, since Rabbi Yosef Galilei is telling you that the chatat chitzonit, that the blood comes inside, gets burnt, so obviously the chatat of Aaron, it's going to burn immediately. And even though the psul of the dam is like a psul of something else. So the same halacha would apply that according to Rabbi Yosef Galilei, the psul of ba'alim, of the owners, are going to be burnt immediately. So that's like Rabbi Yochanan and Broka. So it comes out that Rabbi Yosef Galilei and Rabbi Yochanan and Broka are saying the exact same thing, that it's burnt immediately. You don't have to wait. So Rabbi Yochanan savar damu basar chadamim tahi, and says the Gemara that according to Rabbi Yochanan, the meat and the blood is the same thing, which means that both of them are part of the goof of the korban, and therefore a psul in the blood is like a psul in the goof. So therefore, that's why you burn it immediately, and you don't have to wait until it gets rotten. Be'alim means, but if it's the owners, it's something else, which means like this. He's saying something which is very logical. The blood and the meat, even if they're two different items, one is blood and one is meat, and the meat you're going to eat, and the blood you're going to sprinkle, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's the goof of the korban. So therefore, according to him, once there's a psul, there's a disqualification in one of them, whether it's the meat or whether it's going to be the blood, you burn it immediately. But the psul in the owners is nothing to do with the sacrifice. It's who brought the sacrifice. It's like a different entity. So since it's a different entity, there you have to wait until it gets rotten, and then you're going to burn it. But if not, not. Okay? So Bezat Hashem, we continue Bezat Hashem.